soy Chicharango, suscríbete, aguanten fútbol.
What's up, everybody? The mantra that we have for this week is 1 down, 2 to go. This is LAFC 360. I am Vince Rosa, and joining me, Connor Kalopsis, and the voice of LAFC, Max Bretos. We're all very, very happy on this Monday. We have a lot to celebrate, but a lot of work to do, and we're going to accomplish all that in like 45 minutes right here on LAFC 360, right, guys?
Always. We always do it in a very timely manner, Vince.
Yeah, we bring it every week on LAFC 360. Sometimes there's nothing going on, and sometimes there's a lot going on, like this week. So we've gotta be consistent, even though there's a lot to talk to. We'll get to all of it. Obviously, this is the good stuff. This is what we signed up for, supporting or working for this club as we head into just the second Western Conference final, just the second playoff win for LAFC. So.
You're right, Max. There's a lot to talk about, so we might as well get right into it so we don't miss anything. We're going to try our best to go over everything, and that includes going over that Galaxy match and then looking ahead to Austin, because I'm looking in this chat. All you guys have a lot to say about the Galaxy, and then everyone's pumped up for Austin. So we'll try to cover all the bases with you guys, but let me remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Go ahead and hit that like button.
Smash that like button.
Smash it.
Button. Smash it, and send us the bill for your computer. And then just be active in the chat, which you already are. And I see an old friend, Gerardo. Gerardo, you've had a tough go with your new job, but welcome back. We're glad to have you. So let's get busy.
Appreciate you, dude.
Yes, we do appreciate you, and we got to see you out there sometime. Back with us out in Pepsi Plaza. Which, by the way, if you guys didn't check out the tailgates or the post game, it was a lot. There was a lot going on. We got through like 15 minutes, but really the crowd just wanted to party, and I'm cool with that. So we went off and partied. But let's go ahead and get started.
Did you
as we always do.
Did you go home or did you go to the after parties?
I did. I went up to the Sunset Deck. Can you believe it? Probably haven't been there in like a year and a half.
OMG.
How long did they keep it open till?
Oh, it was I left there probably, they were raging well close to midnight, and it didn't look like it was going to stop anytime soon. But I had to get home. So yeah, it was going. But let's start this show like we do every show with our 3 questions. And we'll start with what happened. And because there's so much to talk about, we're going to do this a little bit different. I'm just going to kind of steer the ship. So what happened, obviously, is LAFC beat their biggest rival 3-2, a game in which they never trailed, but did give up multiple leads. And so what I want to start with you guys is, what was the single biggest or most important factor of this game? Because I can think of a few. Obviously, Dennis Bouanga involved in all 3 goals. Steve Cherundolo with a big call in a substitution, not making his first substitute until the 78th minute. You could talk about Chicho Rongo, right place, right time. Connor Kalopsis, what was the single biggest thing for you that resulted in the 3-2 victory?
It has to be Bouanga, right? I mean, so much happened in this game. So much happens in these El Tráfico games every time it happens. But Bouanga was the difference maker for LAFC, which was much needed. I can't say for certain that if he wasn't on the pitch, we would be winning that game, if I'm being completely honest. So yeah, he's the difference maker. He's coming late in this season. He's settled well with the team. He's part of that core group now, whereas you have a couple different players, whether it's Teo, Bale, Chiellini a little more so, but Teo and Bale specifically, who haven't really cemented themselves in the starting lineup completely. But seeing Bouanga come in at that time and just, we said it, how many times have we sat here when Brian Rodriguez was still on the team saying he's just got to be able to put the ball in the back of the net when it matters, right? He's got the it. He has it, but you also have to put the ball in the back of the net. And how many times have we like just sat here and been like, why can't he do that? Denny stepped up big in a playoff game, scoring 2 goals. Are you kidding me? That's such a huge asset for us. I love it. Big game Bouanga.
We knew it was coming, right? We just saw it, and we love Matt Doyle, but he said that data about how Bouanga hasn't been converting. And by the way, Matt Doyle is the best follow in MLS, because what I love about him is that he'll identify players because he watches everything, and he will identify players that people will be talking about 2 years ago. But he went after Bouanga and it backfired on him. And look, we have the benefit of watching Denny play every week, and you knew it was going to pop. You don't get those gilt-edged chances time and time, or take on and have that work rate without the payoff. And it came out in a huge way. And he is a 90-minute guy. He's not going to come off in any game, regardless if LAFC have 2 more games or 1 more game the rest of the season. I think the coaching storyline is also very interesting, because we were like going, what's going on? And then Carlos Vela comes out, and he's always come out of the game okay, but this time he was like, wait a minute, we're still chasing this game. He brought on Mahala, and then they get the goal. It changed the game. It was the right move.
And who was the one saying that Mahala was going to be the X factor for LAFC in the playoffs?
That was Vince,
recall
right?
Someone saying that in a stoppage time.
Let's not get carried away. He had a nice performance, but an X factor's a bit strong. It's like not a capital X, but a small X. I just think the management is really interesting, because how do you prepare for a fact where you're like, okay, Chiellini, we might get him a little bit at the end. No Gareth Bale. I'm not going to use Christian Teo. He's sitting there. He's a rock star of a player, but I can't use him. And then bringing in these guys at the right time, I think that was that reflects very well off of Steve Cherundolo. I'll also say that this is kind of what we expect from LAFC. It's not pretty. The game was amazing, but I rewatched it, and there was, while LAFC did well, I mean they were chasing a lot. They were there was sloppiness, to be sure. It wasn't a just spectacular 90-minute performance. It was exciting because you were there in that atmosphere and there was so much at stake. But this is how LAFC plays. They'll mix it up with you, but they get results
this year. But I will say, Vince, maybe go ahead.
Well, I was going to add on to Max's point about a big decision. So
awkward.
Well, look, I use this reference a lot. So, and it's easier to see with Major League Baseball managers. They bring a guy in, a guy hits a home run off of him, but then everyone forgets all the times that it went right? So they always kind of hammer people for bad decisions. But bringing out your captain, Carlos Vela, and I know Steve kind of covered for him a little bit, said, yeah, he was cramping. I think that was Steve just trying to save some face of his captain. But he made that decision, and it was the right decision. I would say there was a secondary decision, and people are pointing this out in the chat about kind of the space given up in midfield. But Steve said that at halftime, they went to more of a 2-6s approach with Kellen Acosta and Ilie Sanchez just kind of in that space in front of the back line. And I if I'm remembering correctly, Ricky Puig pretty active in dangerous spaces in the first half. Second half, I can't really remember him being in and around maybe like 25 yards out. And was that the right approach to change the setup?
I mean,
we knew that it was going to kind of go around Ricky Puig. We knew that. So I thought he was so influential, for better or worse. But he is, as we said here, he was going to be a centerpiece of this, and that's kind of where the game not was won, but certainly was played.
Well, I don't want to move on to what we learned yet, but I think it's important to mention. I forget who said it in the chat that I think it was Luis. Do we feel we played the best team and game plan? I mean, against the Galaxy. I think if we do want to move on to what we learned, I feel as if we learned that this team is cut out top to bottom for a result. When we were talking in the pregame and we saw that Chiellini wasn't starting, and now we kind of know he wasn't completely fit to start, we were a little worried, right? Because we were, I guess, so used to seeing Chiellini in either with Murray or with Segura. That was just a given. You guys talked about it on MVP that, who's going to start with Chiellini in this game? And so when we found out that it was Murillo and Segura, and the last game they played together was against Austin, when the game that we will not talk about until later, I just think players were able to step up and grind out a result. Look, as Max was saying, it wasn't the prettiest game LAFC have ever played. They grinded out a result like they have been doing all season, but the fact that we didn't have Bale, we didn't really have Chiellini, Teo didn't play, Carlos came out in the second half, Opoku was able to come in and step up. Like that's big, especially coming into the playoffs. And I don't want to understate how much credit we have to give the whole team. We still have 2 more games to win, 2 more games to go all the way to the cup, but you have to give at least a little credit to the team, and a lot of that is Steve Cherundolo, as Max was saying. That's kind of the genesis of this monologue. But
Yeah, I mean, producer Chris nails it here in our fancy rundown. LAFC finds a way to win. If you're asking about game plan, I don't think I don't think they executed what the game plan was. Because I talked to some people and they wanted to press. They wanted to be high up the field. They wanted to possess the ball and they really couldn't. It was weird to watch it was weird to watch a game in which like at times they couldn't string 3 passes together, but the first and second goals are like 15 to 19 pass moves that were pretty nice. But ultimately, like you said, Connor, they really grind it out. So let's kind of move to what we learned. And I'm going to start with you, Max. Are you more confident in this version of LAFC than you are the 2019 team? And let us remind everyone that's on the show today, that is the anniversary of that 2019 5-3 victory over the Galaxy. But if you compare these two versions, Max, and the way that they can win games, who are you picking? Like if the 2019 team was playing this team, who are you picking?
That's a tough question. I don't like tough questions, La Rosa. Just a sidebar.
I think that's why we do this show, though.
I know. Okay. I know. I will answer it. I did want to add what we did learn was football in Los Angeles is in good hands because the Galaxy look like they're going to be getting better as well, and LAFC. So this could be something we see at the top of the West, and with the playoffs going chalk, that's great. We also learned that's such a special place to see a game, and I'll have some great memories, as we all will, roaming around that stadium, giving people hugs. I gave like Todd Saldana a 2-minute hug, and I almost started crying because I was holding him like, don't go. I saw Ilya gave him a hug. I was like, and I sweat, and he was just drenched with sweat. And I go, I don't care. I was there with my wife jumping around. I was like, it's unbelievable. But this is, I guess the answer is this 2022 team for the question that you asked, just because when it's completely in place, it really has everything you could want. And I think the criticism we had on 2019 is they played a certain style, and when things kind of went awry, the adjustment didn't come. Where this team can transition, even when they weren't getting possession early on against the Galaxy, they didn't make mistakes. You know, they sat back and said, "Well, okay, this is what we have right now. Let's protect these channels. Let's close these gaps between the lines, and we'll see if that can work." So I think this is a resourceful team, obviously more talented when all things are clicking. It's middle of October, we're almost at Halloween. There's 2 weeks left in the season, and we feel like we still haven't seen this very best version of this 2022 team. We feel like there's this eureka moment where it's gonna go, there it is.
Wouldn't you just
Hopefully
love that
Sunday.
to come in the MLS Cup final? Wouldn't you just love the team to just
I feel like there's a really good chance of that happening, where everything just to click. Gareth Bale coming in, scoring a goal, everything going bang bang, because they still kind of grind out games. And if you're at this level, you're going to drop a bit. At some point, you're going to go above it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Max. We're still looking for kind of that 90-minute performance. I'm trying to rack my brain here to really think of when we got it.
Team, we had that in 2019. We had those 90-minute performances. Goes, that's how it's supposed to look. We haven't had that with the team.
Yeah, where they actually absolutely steamroll. I mean, I was chatting with some people, and we were just talking about that game and how it was just this weird, not the usual LAFC performance, but maybe we need to make a really strong delineation like you just did, Max. This is not really a 2019 style team. They don't press the same, but they're much more pragmatic, and they rely on basically superior talent, great adjustments from the coaching staff, and then great subs. And maybe that is, while it worked well in the regular season, I know a lot of the people that left 2019 were like, maybe we can't win the big game. Maybe this is the way you win the big game. It's by having those 3 concepts: pragmatism, adjustments, depth. Connor, do you agree with that? I mean, do you feel more confident?
Yes. Well, I am more confident, yes, if we have a league title to show from it come the end of this season, then it'll be a different conversation. But I think you're right. We didn't have that in 2019, or not enough of it, right? And I think if things go according to plan, it will show that those 3 elements will pay off in the end in the form of a title.
Well, Leonardo makes a good point in the chat. Certainly going to need to adjust versus Austin. So let's move to where do we go from here, and where do we go from here as a trilogy. It's now the 3rd time we will play against Austin, and they obviously beat us home and away. So, Connor, I'll start with you. What scares you most about Austin?
Well, before I say that, look, the playoffs are crazy. Any team is going to be a tough opponent in the postseason. I said before decision day even came around, if things aligned the way I want it to, I would play the Galaxy in the semis, Austin in the final, and then Philly in the final. And that could quite possibly happen. So I'm very excited just on like an entertainment level. Even though, look, like I'm not one who watches the Dallas and Austin game and say, okay, I don't think Dallas is better than Austin, so I want to face Dallas in the conference finals. No, either of those teams coming to the bank will be a tough opponent. Whatever happens, happens. I am very scared. I'm just more scared of the occasion. I don't know if there's anything like specific, like the fact that this is just kind of a one-off against a team who really has nothing to lose. I think that's it. They have nothing to lose. They've made it farther than they ever have in their history. 2 playoff wins in their first time being in the MLS Cup playoffs. We have a lot to lose. It's MLS Cup or bust. And I think that showed against the Galaxy when, they always play with nothing to lose. And I think that kind of rubs off on the team a little bit. And so, look, they're coming into our house. Nothing to lose. I think they hate our team a lot, vice versa. So it's gonna be wild.
Max, do you agree? Do you agree they have nothing to lose? I mean, the last team technically had nothing to lose.
They do have They still have a lot to lose because again, you don't know if you're gonna get to this again. There's so many teams. There's a different Western final every year. Who knows if LAFC gets back to this?
Max, but you can't tell me that if LAFC are to lose this Western Conference final, this will feel like a failure on our part. If Austin loses this Western Conference final, it will feel like less of a failure. But hey, we got there. We went as the distance.
But you've
gotten this far. You've got to get the result. And I'll say this is to answer your question, Vince, about what scares you about Austin. When they beat LAFC August 26th, they were on a high. And then they won 1 game in their last 7 in the regular season. Now they're going a little this again. So that kind of, they were comprehensive against FC Dallas. I mean, FC Dallas pulled that goal late, but Austin really beat them.
If Austin plays like they did in that 5-minute window, they scored 2 goals against Dallas. That's what I'm scared of. But if they play anything like they did in the last 10 minutes, then no.
Well, look, against Real Salt Lake, they fell behind and they found a way. This is a team that deserves to be here, and they have LAFC's number. They're going to use that to their advantage. The one thing, and I think we circle back to talking about this last week, and you mentioned it, Connor, about LAFC's emotional investment to beat the Galaxy. Well, when they did that in 2019, they had 4 days until the Western Final against a seasoned team in Seattle. Now they have 10 days ahead of a team that's completely green, literally in this sort of circumstance, and figuratively. So there's those things in favor. But Austin, to me, underestimate them at your own peril. They're here for a reason. They were a second best team in the West, and they had some good wins, including against LAFC.
Well, what they have to lose too is not just what you said, Max. They obviously comprehensively beat LAFC at their own place, but they beat them twice. So in their minds, as much as we can say, hey, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, they should be going into this being like, we've beaten this team both home and away. So that's kind of what they have to lose. Like the narrative around them is they have figured out LAFC. But let's kind of, as we keep talking about this, let's kind of craft a little bit of a game plan, because actually hearing you guys talk about Austin and what scares you about Austin is kind of what scared people, I think, about the 2019 LAFC team. They've got finishers and they score timely goals. So they really get on you. They have the ability to come back. But I watched that game, and at times when FC Dallas really controlled the ball, and this was something I'll add, LAFC was not able to do against the Galaxy, but when Dallas kind of knocked the ball around, sometimes not even with real purpose, just held on to it, Austin kind of looked lost. Like they were like, we don't want to defend for a long period of time. So my game plan would be possession, and maybe safer possession at times, as opposed to the Galaxy. Again, I don't know if we really saw the game plan, but it seemed like LAFC wanted to score a goal with every pass. Just go forward, forward. And sometimes it didn't work. I think you got to really sit them down and say, guys, against Austin, the longer we hold the ball, the better off we'll be, because 1, they have quick strike ability, and 2, they just don't want to defend. I want to get your guys' thoughts on what would you, Max, what would you be saying if you're Steve Cherundolo this week in film?
Yeah, I think, and I like what Neeson Mob Squad said, defense will win this game. And remember this Galaxy game, LAFC were good. They allowed 5 shots, but 2 got through. This should have been a low-scoring game. They were like really, against the grain goals late, and thankfully to LAFC's benefit. Also want to mention what Chris Lafferty said. They found a way against RSL, talking about Austin, but also played with a man up, which is true, and only tied on a penalty kick. They got very lucky on that. They got very lucky on. Not underestimating, but they are not putting up a good showing, which is a different prism to look through. And look, LAFC should, on form, we should probably thump this team, come out and beat them and say, okay, you're not beating us 3 times. We're a better team than you, so we'll do it. But I think that attention to detail from Steve, a lot of film session, looking at the defense to make sure that you minimize those chances. But even if there are chances, you just not leaky. So, I mean, that's why I think Chiellini is a guy who could come in, a lot of people agreed with, and just really organize this thing to that situation. But the midfield has to be watertight. They didn't have their best game, and we circled them as a key. So, there are question marks. There's enough for, I think, Steve to look at from this game. When we told you it was a triumphant moment, but it was a flawed performance, that there's some things that I think on the defensive side that they have to tighten up, especially a team that scores this many goals and has always got their foot on the pedal. They're going to go for it.
A lot of people getting in the chat, asking some questions, and I'll remind you guys, fan questions are coming next, but to a kind of precursor at this, because it kind of fits in what we're talking about, I'll ask the question about center backs to you, Connor. And guys, if you have any more questions, start thinking of them now, start putting them in the chat. But Connor, 3 center backs. We're assuming that if Giorgio's fit, he's probably an option for Steve. But so you're saying Giorgio has to play, then who's his partner?
Yeah, I just on Giorgio, I see some people saying, look, I think Gerardo says, look, Chiellini's good, but Steady Eddie and Murray are great. I just think, you don't pass up the opportunity to start a player of his class in a Western Conference final. That's just an asset that Austin surely doesn't have, and nor does any other team in this league. So 100% Chiellini, in my humble opinion. And I think you go Segura. I think you need that. I still don't know if I'm convinced on Murillo and Chiellini in these high pace games, especially when Austin's going to be countering as fast as they will be against you. You want Eddie to be able to, go out of his way to try to lock down Driussi if it comes to it. And I would pick Eddie locking that down better than Murillo.
Yeah, Austin's going to keep the ball
Eddie Segura and yeah, they did. They will. But remember, Max, Eddie and Murray started in that game in Austin. So would that go into your thinking at all, Max?
That Eddie and Murillo started together?
Yeah, against Austin in Austin. Remember, they started that game. Do you take that into account?
It was a much different Eddie Segura for starters. I think that's
been
something
long enough.
Yeah, I mean, but that was an Eddie who was coming back in. Now he looks watertight. Murillo does bring a different skill set. Chiellini is the one that I think makes sense. Although again, this is a team that's going to stretch those defenders. You certainly need some pace. I think Eddie Segura maybe is the most sensical of the 3. That I think if you're gonna start building a lineup, his name goes in on ink ahead of the other 2.
I kind of like it because you get more passing. Like Eddie and Chiellini are two of the better passes. Or Murray, although I will say for that first goal, did hit a nice diagonal to Cheeky that kind of unlocked the Galaxy for a little bit and got them into this area where they basically kind of got field position and then they kind of set up shop. But yeah, I kind of disaagree.
We're sleeping on Moody, aren't we? We're sleeping on Moody.
We are. I actually haven't been. I mean, look, Eddie is still an amazing defender and his brain's there, but I don't think he's quite been the same, and that's not his fault. Major injury. I think it takes a little bit longer than even we think, because I'm not seeing the same Eddie. I just haven't seen him quite yet, and I'm not saying that's bad. He's still better than 75% of the center backs in this league, even coming off of a major injury, but he's not to the level I think he could be at. Whereas Murray, for whatever reason, he lines up next to Chiellini, and all of a sudden he's the second coming of Barzagli or somebody playing with him at Juventus. He just finds a way to. It's like the sum. It's greater than the parts together. The sum is greater than the parts. So I think that's interesting. One last thing.
You got to go a long way, by the way. You got to go a long way to the season. I'm trying to find it out now. For the last time, it was Chiellini and Murillo starting together. That's true. A little bit of stretch. Segura's been in there with one of those 2 guys for the better part of 2 months.
So before we move on, any takes on the noon kickoff or even the 10 days to prepare? We had 11 days to prepare for the Galaxy. I would say that if we're thinking back to 2019, this is a much more optimal situation than I believe we had 4
100%.
games. We had to play the Galaxy, and then 4 days later we had to play Seattle. But any tidbits from either of you on the layoff and or the kickoff?
Yeah, for the kickoff, I'll just say it's disappointing because of the magic the night creates at that place. But I get it. It's an ABC window. Yes, that was first dibs for the playoffs. They wanted LAFC Austin, so hopefully they get the most out of it.
Yeah,
Connor?
you can't really argue, right, with the that's the way it is. I can complain all I want, but we'll have to get business done at noon, I guess, on a Sunday. Should we go to
Thankfully,
church before?
it should be. What were you saying? The weather report's pretty. It's not going to be roasting hot. We'll have shadows.
No, it's good.
Yeah,
So in LA, it's going to be like, I think it's a high of 73, which is a great for a day game in Los Angeles.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit of shadow, so we'll just have to get there really early and all have breakfast together.
Take it easy on Saturday. Take it easy on.
I know.
Saturday.
Should we do a 110 football mukbang
play right
breakfast pre
Yeah.
conference final?
Strawberries
We'll
and
do a
cream.
podcast.
Yeah, I'm definitely in for that.
that's-
Okay,
that'll
so
be
let's
fun.
move on. I think we've covered
Catering by Defenders of the Bank.
Yeah, well that'll be
Yeah.
a liquid breakfast, I believe then. So, guys, we kind of covered Galaxy, I think, pretty well. Kind of things that we liked. We covered Austin and what we would like to see different. So I think it's time for us to move on to the fan questions. I want to start with one that I saw very early on from Craig, and I think I remember the gist of it. It was, and I know that we can't really do this, but he was asking, should we abolish the East versus West in the final, because an LA final would have been pretty great. Connor, you see, Connor's
Nah.
no,
Nah.
Like they do in League MX, one table.
yeah, like still have conferences, but then you structure them through the supporter shield.
We're so driven by our rivalries and our regions that East versus West isn't going to be the sexiest one. You're better off hopefully getting, like, for instance, Philadelphia,
really
New York
think
City FC, or getting LAFC-Galaxy. I think it would cater. Doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it does certainly happen in Liga MX.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I hate so many teams in this Western Conference, Max. I dislike the Galaxy. Awesome. Like, the list goes on. Almost every team. I don't know if there's one other team that I like in the Western
You like
Conference.
I know you like the
any
Earthquakes.
common ground possible. It's the fact that I will stick together and say that the Western Conference is better than the East any day of the week, and I will stand
It
by
is.
my fellow rivals to make sure that point is hit home. To let these guys on the East Coast talk all they want. At the end of the day, the West is better, and as much as I hate, like, even the Dynamo, I'm a back them to be better than who this year? Who are we gonna say? DC.
The
Connor,
East got better this year because some of those teams like FC Cincinnati and Inter Miami, which were whipping boys, were now doing much better.
yeah, but they just got replaced by the Torontos and the DCs, so they just kind of moved some pieces
It happens
around.
every
but they're
year.
still pretty.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think there's too much that goes into shifting stuff around. I still enjoy the West versus East. I still enjoy this kind of Americanized version of this league because it's like you bridge the two gaps. You bridge American sports with football, and it's great. That's why the playoffs are always crazy.
Connor, Daniel Angel said he had beef to start the chat. He was like the first comment in the chat, and I think it's because
What's
of
the
this.
beef,
Important
bro?
question. Important question. Why did you shave your mustache?
Oh, yeah. I was going to do a playoff stash. I had to shave it. I was filming this bit where I had to be clean shaven, so I did it. And then I was going to be really mad if we lost because that means was definitely the mustache that was keeping our dreams of the
mustache.
World Cup alive. But it actually did the opposite. So maybe it's the clean shaven playoff face.
Yeah, you
I
don't.
know.
You don't want
What-
that.
I don't
you
even
want
know
that.
what I'm saying. I'm just talking at this point, guys.
By the way,
you don't want
did
that
see
kind
the
of pressure.
question, Luis Reyes, what goes in the 110 signature breakfast burrito?
I was going there next as our resident foodie, Max.
Well, because I
Bretos.
gotta
Good
say,
question.
in the-
Thank
our
you, guys.
listeners-
These are great
Our
questions.
listeners don't have as many questions because they all have great takes, so they're on par with us. They're just here for the company.
true.
They're not here for the expertise because they are all experts now. These are really good comments. So if you want questions, we kind of have to go the lighter route. So we're going burrito. I got to put bacon in there somewhere.
Okay.
That's all right.
That's your. Is
That's
that
some
that's your meat of choice, or is there more mushrooms?
breakfast.
very-
Well, I'm a vegetarian,
spicy,
so
too.
I'm going no meat.
Since
There's only one
when?
burrito. You got to eat it. We all got to eat the same burrito.
I'm not
Okay.
vegetarian.
I would rather not have mushrooms in my breakfast burrito, but I'm
Okay.
with you on the bacon. How are you? Are you? So I've gotten some breakfast burritos where the hash browns are more tater tots, and some where the more the sliced hash browns. Where are you? Where do you stand on
I
that,
think
Bretos?
some slice hash browns, light dusting of the potato, so
Yeah.
it doesn't
What about-
You don't want
overwhelm
too
you,
much.
and then you're
You don't want
asleep
too
half
much.
time.
Yeah. What about eggs? I'm in with eggs, but sometimes too much eggs. Like tone it down a little bit.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. Yes, Vince. Vince knows.
Chris says you
Too
can
much
never go
eggs.
wrong with mushrooms. I don't know about that, producer Chris. I really don't. Here's a question. How does Bale find his way into this game?
I think
He might not.
20
I mean,
look,
if we're winning,
this is the other thing with Gareth Bale, because if he was healthy for that game, he comes in and replaces Chicho. Instead, Chicho goes 90 minutes. And Chicho was laboring with Cáceres. He wasn't getting open, but then he had that chance and he scored the goal. But I think that's what would happen. You'd see Gareth Bale probably 70th minute. He can, if regardless of the scoreline, if LFC are winning, he can help hold up play. If they're chasing, then he could certainly get it, or they're tied as well. So I think there's definitely a time for him. And by the way, Leonardo made a good point. Breakfast tacos are big. The breakfast taco discussion is back. How can we forget that? Oh boy.
Oh boy.
And by the way, I also
people
see
are talking
Leonardo saying the MLS Cup. I don't want to jinx it, but there's a USC Cal game at 7:30. I believe the MLS Cup would be played at 1:00.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's not a conflict.
It would be
Everyone keeps
fine.
asking about that.
I will
Yeah,
say
it's
for
not- I
people
don't
in the
think it'll
chat,
be a
I think
problem.
people are a little torn with the whole Bale topic. Look, he
You don't put him in there
wasn't
if you don't need him.
He wasn't 100%. If you don't need him, you don't need him. If he is feeling healthy, feeling 100%, if you're chasing the game or if you're winning, he can go in and help you regardless. It's still Gareth Bale. That being said, even if it's not a major injury, he's looking forward to the only World Cup he's ever going to play in. And I think, look, as much as I want to say he should be like grinding it out to play in the MLS Cup final, like take who he is into account and the context of his career into account. Look, I want him to be through and through, give everything he can in an MLS Cup final. Maybe he can just do that next year, guys.
Yeah,
And he will be back.
Yeah, it's a bit of a harsh reality, and I think it just again, let's go back to when it happened, and let's go back to the salary that they signed him on. Every single MLS team would have gone for it. Has it gone necessarily that way? No, but at least LAFC had other depth than Teo, and then the guys they already had.
Exactly.
So I understand it, because look, I would love Gareth Bale to come in and score a banger, but if he doesn't, and LAFC keep winning, I'm not hurt by it. And if he goes to the World Cup, fine. And who knows how he comes back? Maybe he comes back better than ever because he's buoyed by a great World Cup. But it doesn't bother me as much as I feel like it bothers some people, where it's like, you have a Ferrari in the garage and you're not bringing it out. I get it, but it's just, I don't know why. It just doesn't bother me.
Leave the
It's true,
Ferrari in
because
the
it's a
garage.
luxury.
Leave it in the garage.
It's a luxury. So if we're able to go the distance and win MLS Cup, and whether it's using the Ferrari a little bit or not, I just don't get the hate that he's getting, especially when we're playing as good as we are and we have the depth that we're saying. I think you nailed it right on the head, Vince. It's like it is a luxury. It's not like we're depending on him. If we were depending on him and needed him to come up big in the MLS Cup final and he didn't want to, then I would be a little upset at that guy. But you have Big Game Bouanga. I thought he was a fan favorite, guys. Come on now.
He is. He's our he's our most important player right now.
100%.
Denny Bouanga. Can you believe that?
Ooh, that's a I think a good take, but still a little hot. Like if Danny Bouanga in his short period of time is your most important player, it's not a bad thing, but yeah, it's interesting.
Is.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think you're wrong.
But that's it's more than
his
anything.
new Lexus in the garage.
That was the position we didn't have. That was almost like the Diego Rossi de facto type role that we were missing, and he's exceeded expectations. And it was like that little missing piece of the jigsaw. Boom. And it's not to say he's the most important player, but he was the clear-cut missing piece. And with that, everything works.
Well, you know how much I love a reference to Diego Rossi as one of my favorite LAFC players of all time. So I think that's a great shout. He does fill that void that Diego did with now timely goals, and just his energy is it's a different level.
I will say, if Driussi gets injured or has to come off, who comes on for Austin?
Maxi Urruti.
right? So, but if Vela has to come off for
I didn't mean to
whatever
laugh.
reason,
I stick by our Maxis.
Mahala, Teo,
Mhm.
Bale, if healthy, right? So I'm banking on that to see us through and win this game.
I kind of like the Austin. I mean, it's not the LAFC bench, but they're able to get an impact from the guys they bring in. Even Owen Wolf, somebody he came in and really shadowed these guys that were trying to get that equalizer. So I mean, it worked for Austin. It's definitely not an LAFC league.
Wait a second here. AXG GMX says Austin FC has 0 stars. They literally have a guy that could win the MVP. Sebastian Driussi is a star.
He will.
But Diego Fagundes, to me, is their most important player. Can you classify him as a star? I mean, he was like a throwaway that they brought in, and he's just become amazing this season.
No, and their comment is, you're right, but the fact that you have Bale on your team and the other teams have 0 stars, which is not true, and still give LAC a hard time says
is
a lot.
AXG GMX an Austin account?
I don't know, but you know what it says? No. You know what it says to me? It doesn't say a lot. It says, hey, this is football. It's not basketball where you can just have LeBron and win games and go to a finals. Like, you need to have a full complement of a team. And the fact that we have Bale on the bench and teams still give us a hard time, I don't think says anything about stars per se. And I think I just think you're really selling short the good players around the other teams in MLS. Like Bale was never going to be the absolute best player in MLS. He just has a higher ceiling in moments. But somebody like Denny Bouanga is a much better player than Bale over the course of 90 minutes. He's got to be. It's just an age thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree. I like the Ferrari.
That's your last words, Vince. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It just Leonardo says, I mean, Erling Haaland exists, Vince. I mean, he exists, but not here, not in this realm.
Yeah, he doesn't play with Austin.
Totally different world. All right, I don't agree. I don't agree that Austin doesn't have stars. And Max, to your point, Fagundes is not a star, but I agree with you 100%. Their most influential player he's selfless. He allows Driussi to do all the things that gives Driussi the headlines.
Yeah, that's it. He takes a big burden off him.
And as Craig is saying, I think he's got a point where Austin is better than the Galaxy, at least against us coming into this game. But there's a reason why we're facing Austin in the conference final, right? Mm-hmm. So it's gonna be an intense match. You get to this point in the season, nothing's guaranteed. I think LAFC have a better shot than they've ever had to go all the way. But again, it could have easily gone the other way against the Galaxy in this game. It could easily won a couple moments being switched off. A shitty handball in the box leads to a penalty, right? Like, there's so many variables at play where this is what happens when you have a crapshoot of a 90-minute playoff match, right? So
yep.
I'll be excited. I'll be pumped up, but I'll try to enjoy it like I did last game.
AXG is still going at me for the stars thing. Look, take the names off the back of the jerseys. That's how I look at stars. Chiellini, Bale, Vela, all have big names, but if they don't deliver, they're not stars to me. No, he's just saying, like, why can't your team play well because you have players that I've heard of? Yeah. Okay. I mean, look at PSG. Still can't win a Champions League. So again, it's football. Ooh. It's not about the names on the back of your jersey. So I
love the PSG slander.
Yeah, let's leave it there. Well, I did that specifically for my man, big game Denny Bouanga, who had a goal in each game against PSG and then 2 goals against the Galaxy. There you go.
By the way, after that take from Vince, smash that like button. Let's go.
Yeah,
got a bunch of people in here. Smash that like button.
Click the bell. Be notified every time we post a video.
All right, thanks for the fan questions, and thank you to AXG for getting it a little spicy in here. We needed it.
That's what we want. Love AXG. That's what we want.
Little bit of a love fest here, so we appreciate you moving along and getting us a little bit out of our comfort zone.
You guys love us too much.
It's time to go to stoppage time, and it's our chance for each of us to pick a topic, any topic that we want to rant and rave on. And I'm going to start with you, Connor Kalopsis. What is your stoppage time topic? And go for it.
Are you guys ready, viewers? Ready for my stoppage time? I'd like to. I'm going to open it up to the league a little bit for my stoppage time this week. I think the way the playoffs have gone and led to both the West and Eastern Conference finals, I think this is probably 2 of the best matchups in a conference final in recent history. So on the East, you have the reigning champions and arguably the best team in the East, if not arguably the best team in the league. There was that debate, right? Then in the West, you have the new hot kids on the block in Austin. and then the Supporter Shield winners, the MLS Cup or Bust team. So, look, if Montreal had beat NYCFC, it would have been 1 and 2 seed versus 1 and 2 seed, which you don't get that much in these crapshoot playoffs. Like I talked about a little bit earlier, you have teams like RSL that finish 7th in the table and somehow make the conference final. So it's up in the air sometimes. But look, these conference finals are what you want for MLS. You want LAFC hosting Austin FC. You want Philly hosting NYCFC, and whichever two teams come to the playoffs, that's gonna to the final. That's gonna be a great matchup. Not only I think there's a couple boxes that each of these teams tick. It's big fan base, big market. Other than NYCFC, a good stadium, a good home atmosphere, but NYCFC doesn't have to worry about that because they won't be hosting anything, right? If it was Montreal, I would have said great home atmosphere, great fan base, big enough fan base. But look, you have an New York team, you have an LA team, you have a Texas team, you have a Philadelphia team. These are 4 great teams and great franchises to have in the conference final. So I'm very happy just on behalf of the league and the entertainment value. This is what the league would have wanted. And you want the best of the best to make it to the end. You want some good football come the end of the season. So that's my stoppage time.
Hard to disagree. I mean, it is, and it also might be just significant to where this league has gone and the way these teams are built now, and franchises like, Philly, NYCFC, obviously earlier than LAFC, pushing the league forward, and now you've got the LAFCs and the Austins. They want to go big. So the fact that those are the 4, it says a lot.
And as Luis is saying, I mentioned at the top of the show, this was the pathway to the final that I wanted. He said, is this the hardest route to the cup? 100%. Biggest rival, number 2 in the West, and then if you play number 1 in the East, come on now. Let's do it.
Yeah, but
let's go all the way.
I'll echo Daniel. Let's get there first.
Let's get there first. I know.
Yeah, let's get there first. So let's move that along then. Max Bretos, what is your stoppage time?
I was piggybacking a little bit off of Connor. I did also want to mention, because I saw some comments about the officiating, which was in all 4 games not good. I wanted to talk about it, and there's a lot of things, and I think Vince said something. I don't want to get off track here, but Vince said something about the Alan Chapman we were talking about. It's like this fear of making a big call in a key game. You got to make it. You got to make it. And Drew Fisher was making some mistakes, and I saw your tweet about it, and it's like this standard is it's getting worse. So I thought about it, but just getting back to what I wanted to say, that yes, these playoffs have been fantastic. After I saw those 2 conference semis, I looked at all the playoffs as far back as I could. You couldn't find a matchup. The one that I did like was 2016 when TFC played Montreal in one conference final, which was amazing. Seattle was on the western side. They played the Rapids. I don't want to crap on the Rapids, but that's not the sexiest team. So you didn't have 4 teams that were really at the top. You rarely have chalk. It's usually a 4 seed or a 5 seed. Here you have 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, and the 3 is the reigning champion. You had 4 venues over Thursday through Sunday where it was fervent support, packed stadiums, no Red Bull Arena, no football lines at Toyota Stadium in Dallas. It was intense in all of them. You had great talent on the field, old and young, up-and-coming players like Ismael Kone, like Jesus Ferreira and Alan Franco, like Denny Bonga to a lesser degree, who's a little bit more established. Obviously, Vela and the big stars in Philadelphia, who has the best academy outside of Dallas, maybe better than. All of these things are amazing, but no one's watching. And it's a shame, because I saw the ratings for the Thursday games, and they were on FS1, who doesn't promote anything of this. They're busy with some other things, but that's no excuse. And they were both in like the 240s. The fact that LAFC-Galaxy had a 240,000 Nielsen rating, 240,000 people watching it across the country, is insanity. That was, a once in a lifetime. That in reality, I know MLS isn't a big winner. That should be getting 800, 900,000 viewers. I know that's wishful thinking, but it really should, when you look at all the components that MLS has done their part. So I want more people to see this, because it's like, if a tree fell down in the forest, it's like, you don't know if it happened, but this is something, it's like a big redwood tree you don't want to drop. Very nice to look at. You want it to be upright, and if it does go down, you want to be there. This makes any sense. So with 2023 coming, I think Fox and ESPN really never did enough to promote it. I worked at ESPN and saw it firsthand how they treated the league. I didn't see any promotion really over the weekend. I know you're going against the NFL and college football, and that's untenable. Fox, again, with their promotion, it's non-existent. So with Apple TV here, I'd like to see maybe some changes. Would like to see a platform that really promotes it and gets this out. It's easier to get it out and find ways to promote this league and find ways to get access to the players. I watched the baseball playoffs, and they're interviewing guys in the dugout during the game. And like sometimes we go, oh, we can't hear from this guy. I go, why not? So there's a lot of work to be done because the product's good enough where we shouldn't be getting ratings like that. It should be to a much wider audience. It should at least double what those numbers are over the next couple of years. And hopefully some other things, and Apple help do that.
Yeah.
Granted, it won't be linear.
No, but I think if I'm hearing it right, Connor says that the best MLS has ever been, and you're saying it's a good time for a change, and we will get a change. So hopefully Apple comes in with some big ideas, and I think this chat is testament to that. All these people in this chat wanting to talk about MLS on Monday at 1 p.m. There's more people like this, and they're all across the country. We just need to find them.
And thank you guys. Like, that is an interesting time slot for us to be doing this show, like, in retrospect. So, like, thank you for tuning in every week and, like, listening to us. Because, like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even hype myself up that much, but I appreciate that you guys enjoy this experience this much. And we will continue to be here for you guys.
Well, great takes from you two going kind of league-wide and big picture. I'm not as smart as you two, so I'm going to stay with what I know. I'm going to go back to LAFC and kind of bring us home. I think what we've learned from LAFC, not just in the 2 games they played against Austin, but in these playoffs, is the only team that can beat LAFC is LAFC. I really believe it. Oh. I watched this team play against the Galaxy, and to our points, I don't think we saw the game plan that they were able to put together, but they were able to claw their way into the game, and they never trailed. That's what was really important in this game. I know it seemed a lot closer and a lot crazier, but they never trailed in this game. They had leads at multiple points. They were able to hold on to a lead late in the game, which is something that we haven't always been able to say about LAFC. But then when I went back to look at those Austin games to see what edge or what I could find that I think LAFC needs to do better, it really was just don't make mistakes. First Austin game, it's a corner. Cheeky looks to clear, tries to do a cheeky flip with his left foot and plays it right back to an Austin player. By that point, we basically left the box. It goes into Gabrielson. He finishes. There in Austin, I could have counted at least 3 individual mistakes that led directly to goals. And really, if you're looking at this LAFC team and we're saying what's better than 2019, it is that pragmatism. So if they can come out there and just find ways to keep games close as they get into halftime. Now, I would love them to boat race them and just hammer this Austin team, but I'll say this. Just keep it close. If it's 1-1 at halftime with the adjustments that LAFC's made and no major gaffes in the back, they've got the talent. I really think that this is apropos to that kind of Real Madrid run that they had in the Champions League last year. It's like you leave this team hanging around. They have the talent when the games get a little stretched, when you just need a moment of quality. LAFC's going to finish you off, and they're not going to make the major mistakes. So that's going to be my big takeaway in these playoffs. If we don't see a major mistake from LAFC, I like their odds in any game, in any matchup, and then add the fact that they're at home. It just puts that little extra on top for them. The quality, the depth, the adjustments, it really comes down to don't shoot yourself in the foot. And I think LAFC will be at least in the final. Anything can happen in a final, but I think that's the way to raise MLS Cup. And that's kind of been the big major difference. Like I said, 2019, 2022, these are 2 very different teams and go about it in different ways. It's I guess it's like the firepower 2019 and the go, all brakes, no gas versus now it is basically pragmatism all the way through.
Yeah.
I want to say
they've made it
really quickly. If they win the Western Conference Final, the season will not be a failure if they lose MLS Cup. They would have had a success. They would have exceeded that.
I'm still MLS Cup or bust.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, getting there.
They've never been to an MLS Cup.
No, but look, Max. I think to your point, it's been a success. This team is undoubtedly one of the, if not the best team in the league, and I think I'm not disagreeing with that. But you need to go the distance. You have to win a trophy. You have to win MLS Cup, right? You can't just keep. You can't just keep going to the playoffs for just for a vacation, right? You just got to be able to go to you just have to win it once. Win it once, guys, please.
By the way,
Steve Trundle,
Luis, I
if you're
did not
listening.
fall asleep. I was looking down at my phone because I was texting the producer.
Yeah,
So
he was trying to tell me to get with it and get my point out, which is fair. Okay,
Which I didn't,
you guys.
which was directed to the producer because he told me to do the same. Anyway, water under the bridge.
Well, yeah, we're
Chris.
good. Max, you and I are good, right? We'll still do a podcast tomorrow. Is that okay?
Excited.
Max, Vince, if one of us did have to land a plane that a captain wasn't able to land, who would we pick out of the three of us?
You, because I believe you actually have a couple pilot's license under your belt.
Right. Yeah, you're at the Santa Monica airport taking lessons every other Sunday, I think.
Are we right on that?
Okay, sure. No, you're not right. Maybe like a couple years
You're right by
ago.
the Burbank airport when we're at XRM. You're going, let's get in a
I know, at XRM. I actually take out of Burbank. I go to Vegas every weekend.
Yeah, well, even if you had a couple years ago pilot experience, Max Bretos and I have zero.
I don't know. I don't know about you guys, chat, but I feel like
Just
Max trying
don't
to
take
land
that-
a
don't take that plane
777
ride.
could be pretty fun.
I'll tell you what. We know who you want in the cabin hanging out and partying with. It's Max Bretos. Max Bretos is going to be your in-flight entertainment for sure.
Cuban Hammer himself.
Oh yeah. All right, guys, you guys have been great. This has been awesome. We've got a big matchup on Sunday, and of course, 110 Football will be there. We'll be out at Pepsi Plaza before, so we'll be there early. We'll have some breakfast together, and then we'll be there after the game, hopefully celebrating LAFC's first appearance in an MLS Cup final.
Richie Valenzuela reference from Luis.
Ooh, it's not. Oh no, let's not talk about that. That's a bad way to end it. But yeah, hey guys, join us.
Yeah,
honestly.
why'd you have to talk about it, Max?
Yeah. Well, Max
That was
finds his
very
way.
somber.
Max finds a way to always find the toughest comment to really bring the mood down. Max, the
But
mood
anyway,
killer.
Guys, Western
You're the big
Conference
bopper. I'll
final,
be Buddy Holly.
90-minute match. One win, we host MLS Cup. That's all. It speaks for itself. Let's go.
That's all it takes.
hyped.
And we got 10 days to prepare. So we'll see you guys there. Max and I will have a Max and Vince podcast tomorrow. That'll be out on Wednesday. So there'll be still plenty of content, but join us back Pepsi Plaza before the game on Sunday. We'll see you guys there.